Well, hello there, how is everyone? I hope you are all well. This is video 2 of 2, so if you haven't yet seen video number 1, then go and check it out. Go and check it out after this one, though. Not now, remember, it's all about analytics. You're looking amazing, by the way. You must be having a fantastic day. And if not, don't worry, it's not having any effect on you. Let's get straight into some meat and potatoes, as this is kind of a part 2, but you can watch part 1 afterwards. It's not going to mess up your mojo or anything like that. But in part 1, we spoke about not so much the 8-hour delay itself, but in sort of the closing moments, if you like, and what would have happened and how that looked like. Because I feel that that's the bit that raises the questions. That's the bit, to me, that doesn't make sense. You can say that someone fell asleep all you want, but that person woke up. They woke up, and then what happened after they woke up? It still has to make sense to make the story make sense. And to me, there's just some things that don't. But it doesn't mean that someone is bad. It doesn't mean that someone has done something really bad. But it does it does make you ask a question as to whether that person was used. And I have to ask people's opinions. And I know some people have got some really strong opinions on Dylan Mortensen. Some people can't stand the fact that she is, how can I say, she's almost become a bit of a villain of the story. And I don't want people to consider that that's the only thing she can be. I don't want people to think that. Again, we're about open mind and being innocent until proven guilty, and that goes the same for Dylan Mortensen. She still has to be proven to have done something wrong. So as much as we can point and say she did something wrong, she should have called 911, there's no excuse for that, children can call 911, and so on and so forth, we do also have to play the other side of the fence, and that is that could there be something else? Could there be something else? And even though I struggle to think, look, you could argue and say, okay, she went to sleep, but again, like I say in video 1, she woke up, and still the actions of what happened after she woke up, if that's the route that we want to take, because 8 hours, as we ascertained in video 1, that is a fucking long time. So you still have to make that make sense. But I think to myself, did Dylan Mortensen, did she put herself in a position where she was able to be used? Did she place herself in a position where she was able to be manipulated by law enforcement? And did she actually become something that she never intended to be? And that is a witness that would force a timeline that needed to happen in order for this case to go in the direction it's now going. And is that why we're seeing a young girl? Ultimately, she's not a child, but she's a young female. She's a young female, and, I think to myself, how would someone cope if they've found themselves in a position where this has all happened? This all happened, and maybe it happened because, like we see and we've spoken about in the past, about how youngsters are today, and just they think about themselves, they're not really thinking about anything else, and she's found herself in this position, but she's found herself in a position where law enforcement can turn the screw. And they can turn around and say, the reason I ask this, I'll just set a premise. I think to myself, how do people get cleared as quick as they did? Because we're talking about a period of days, literally days, before they had a suspect, or what we believe they had a suspect, they had cleared certain people. And I think to myself, how do you clear people that quickly when, in effect, some of those people who were cleared, there was no witnesses to clear them? There was absolutely no witnesses to clear them. And in addition to there being no witnesses apart from one another, you've got a massive amount of time that was unexplained. So even if you look at how law enforcement work, law enforcement generally jumps all over people like this. And it's been argued, and I think it's been argued well, because it's a valid point, and that is, if Dylan and Bethany were John and Dave, would the situation have been different? In fact, would we have seen a situation where they were prime suspects, and not having anybody who could vouch for them would have, in effect, put them in the firing line? No pun intended. And I do wonder whether that's what we've seen here. We have seen a situation where Dylan has found herself being able to become a witness for law enforcement, and she has been placed in a position that she can't get out of. An absolute position that she can't get out of. What would she do? How would she get out of it now? Want to come forward and say, actually, they coerced me. Actually, I didn't see anyone, but they put me in a position where I had to say that I saw someone, and I had to say that I saw them at a specific time, and I had to say that I saw specific characteristics to help this. And is that why we don't see anything from Bethany Funk? Because she had a story. She had an account of what happened, and it differed from Dylan Mortensen. And is that, in fact, why we have potential exculpatory evidence? Because there is exculpatory evidence that would prove not so much that Bethany Funk saw something that would exonerate Brian, but she could prove that there was a coercion of a witness, and it wasn't actually a witness. They weren't seen. And it raises another question. It raises the question as to, does Brian know this? Because Brian was indeed there. Because let's not forget, and I've touched on this, if Brian is guilty, and let's just say, for instance, Brian is the person who did this, and I want you to bear with me here. Think about it. Like, we talk about the sheath, and the sheath being left, and we know that Ann Taylor is rarely pushing for that being planted. That's kind of what she was trying to insinuate. What if Brian is the person who did this? And why he's so smug, why he's so pleased with himself. And I'm only putting this out there to be fair, to try and make sense of different things. What if he knows that he didn't leave the knife sheath? What if he knows that the knife that he used wasn't a K-bar? What if it was something completely different? What if he knows he never took one into the house that night? And that's how he knows, beyond a reasonable doubt, that he never left it there. So if they've got a sheath there and it's got his DNA on it, then he knows it ain't him. And he knows it must have been planted. And that's why they're pushing so hard for this DNA and going at it so damn hard. Because remember, Brian Kohberger can't say, "I know that's not mine because I didn't take that. I didn't take that in there. I didn't have a sheath. I didn't use this specific knife either." He can't say that. What if he knows that he didn't go back downstairs? What if he knows he actually went to Xana and Ethan first, he then went to Kaylee and Maddie second, and he left out through their window? So he never went back downstairs and left that way. So he knows whoever Dylan Mortensen said she saw, it weren't him. How do we know that he weren't wearing black? He was wearing white, not black. We only think that he's wearing black because we have an eyewitness to say they were dressed in black. What if he weren't wearing black? What if he actually left naked? What if he stripped all of his clothes off before he left that property and put them in a bag and walked out of that property naked? And in fact, when we hear this chatter in the background about Bethany Funk seeing someone leave naked, what if that was in fact Brian who she saw naked? But then we've got this person who is dressed all in black. So who's that person then? Was that a figment of someone's imagination? Was that just a story? And again, I'm just spitballing. Let me know down below, and I'll catch you all in the next one.